I want to begin with the question that this whole show is built around. Everybody has a story. So, why are you here?
So it's the result of a lot of different decisions that ended up bringing me here, that go as far back as when I was a kid, that just step by step by step, one thing led to another, which led to another, which led to another, and here I am.
Now, I understand that you grew up on a farm, right?
I grew up on a poultry farm in New England. We had about 100,000 laying hens. We had about 500 acres of land. We had cows and sheep and goats, pigs. And I spent my entire childhood and actually my teenage years there. We lost the farm when I was 21 or 22. Family farming is very, very difficult, and it's not particularly profitable. And but yeah, I lived in a small town in Massachusetts, grew up on a farm. I never really had left that farm until I turned 20, and I ended up going to school in Paris.
Wow. So what did that environment teach you about who you were supposed to become?
What was good, I think, was the work ethic. But at the same time, what was bad was the work ethic. So we would typically work all day long, and during the summers, it was 60, 70-hour work weeks. I had 3 brothers and a sister, and then my mother who worked on the farm, as well as my father and my grandfather. The message that was sent to us as children was that your value as a human being was a function of your work, which is profoundly inculcated in me to the extent that now I still work weekends, I work evenings, because I've never been able to shake this basic philosophy, although I know intellectually it's wrong, that my value is not tied to my work, or should not be tied to my work. In fact, emotionally, I still feel that way, even to today. And as I look at retirement, one of the things that I'm thinking a lot about is how can I stay busy and active and productive during retirement?
I think that's a common thing that many soon-to-be retirees have to face, for good or bad.
Yeah, it'd be the first time I've never had a job. I've always worked.
So when you left the farm, you said at age 20, did it feel like growth for you, or did it feel like something else?
So it did feel like growth. It also made me realize how shuttered my life had been. I had just grown up in a small farming community. The schools I don't think were particularly good. I had graduated as class valedictorian, which had gotten me a scholarship to a local college, university, Stonehill College. And then while I was there, I got a scholarship to go study in Europe at the Sorbonne. But I ended up in Paris, and I suddenly realized what a complete country bumpkin I was. I had never been outside. I'd never been in a big city before. I had never dealt with all of the issues that you confront in a busy urban environment. And I was clearly like a duck out of water. But on the other hand, it was a really great wake-up call for me, because it made me realize that the world was so much bigger than the world I had grown up in.
Now, when you went to France for part of your education, was that part of your undergraduate degree or your law degree?
So it was part of my undergraduate degree. I had really enjoyed studying languages in high school and taken French, and just figured I would continue my French in college. And then this opportunity opened up to go to Paris, and I jumped at it, and it was a good choice.
Wow, that's great. And then you went back to the U.S. and you went to law school, and you became a federal prosecutor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so when you became a federal prosecutor, a role strict on rules, structure, and consequences, did that role feel like who you were supposed to be, or at the time you felt you needed to be?
Yeah, so that's interesting. When you graduate law school in the United States, you don't graduate with a particular specialty. What happens is you then choose what you want to do. And I had been working for federal judges, both at the trial level and at the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. And the message that was continually being sent to me by the judges was the best legal job there is being a federal prosecutor. And the reason why is, one, you do the right thing, you have lots of discretion, The cases you work on are absolutely fascinating. And basically, because it's Uncle Sam, you have deep pockets to do cases that state prosecutors can't do. What I liked about it also was the fact that we were the guys with the white hats. I remember the first day I came into the office, I had been hired, my chief sat me down and said to me, and he said it sincerely, it wasn't some type of bullshit that he was simply spewing. He said, we're the government. We make mistakes. We always do the right things, and if we make a mistake, we're the government, we can fix it. We have the money and the ability. So, go out and do the right thing, but just know that we always do the right thing. Those are lines that sound really, really, really good and easy for anybody to repeat, but there was this heartfelt conviction behind my boss when he told me that, and he was absolutely correct. And so I always felt like we were doing God's work, particularly when I started working very large drug cases. I worked a massive international human trafficking case, one of the first Russian mafia cases we ever did in the United States. You saw the victims and you saw the consequences of these criminal activities where you could put very, very bad people away and stop the criminality.
What year did you start your career as a federal prosecutor?
So I started in 1988.
1988.
But I had been working for judges since 1982. So I actually applied in 86, was hired, but there was a long hiring freeze. So I did not begin until 1988, but I just kept working with the judges until the office opened up.
Do you remember the first case that you prosecuted?
Yeah, I had the, quote, misfortune to, with all the brand new attorneys who came in the office, typically you end up doing small cases. And the idea is for the first year or so, you'll get a smattering of cases so you learn how to handle everything that comes in. I had the misfortune of stumbling into a drug case, which started out small but ended up eventually with 45 defendants nationwide, 4 people who ended up going to prison for life. And I ended up suddenly juggling this massive, massive drug case, which it worked out well in the end. We had like a 3-month trial. Everyone was convicted. We recovered lots of assets through asset forfeiture, but it was quite an experience.
Well, and that was, so this is the late 80s, early 90s?
Yes.
So that would have been the crack epidemic or heroin?
So this is something that most people have never heard of. It's called Dilaudid.
Dilaudid?
Dilaudid, D-I-L-A-U-D-I-D. What Dilaudid is it's a synthetic heroin. And what was fascinating about this case is the only way you can get it is by prescription. So what the drug dealers did in my case is they would go to the streets and they would recruit homeless people. And they would give the homeless people a script, which would be, we're going to take you to a doctor's office. You're going to walk in and you're going to say to the doctor, you have cancer, that you've just moved up from Alabama, from wherever. You left your prescription behind. Could the doctor prescribe you 50 tablets of Dilaudid? Now, Dilaudid is synthetic heroin. What was really nice about Dilaudid is it was 100% pure. You buy heroin on the street, you don't know what you're getting in that bag. Hopefully you're getting good stuff, but some of the witnesses at trial testified that they got rat poison, that they shot up and their arms turned black. And so the idea that you could go and get Dilaudid, what would happen is the homeless person would go into the doctor's office, get the prescription, bring the prescription out, give it to the drug dealer. The drug dealer would give the homeless person $100, but then the prescriptions, which typically were 50 pills, could be sold for $50 each on the street of Chicago. So every prescription was about $2,500 that went into this drug dealer's enterprise. And the funniest thing was we executed some search warrants on the drug dealers' houses, and we found yellow pages. And you and I know what yellow pages are.
Like back old school, big yellow pages?
The telephone books. And you would turn to the section for oncology, And they had scratched out doctor after doctor after doctor. What they were doing is they were going start with this doctor, see how long they could get prescriptions, and then move to the next. And the way the scheme worked is if one person got a prescription, the next time they would send in 2 homeless people. And if they got prescription, they'd send in 3. And then one day the doctor walks into his office and he's got 10 people, all of whom desperately need Dilaudid. And the doctor finally figures it out and kicks them all out. And then they move on to the next one. So there were pages and pages of doctors, oncologists, that they just scratched out when they had used them. They finally stumbled into a Filipino physician who gave them whatever they wanted. And she wrote hundreds of, tens of thousands, probably, I don't recall the exact numbers. The numbers were huge of these Dilaudid tablets that were being distributed all over the United States.
And that's how you got onto them, through her?
Yeah, so the DEA had been watching this, and it's called a diversion prosecution because it's not a traditional heroin, cocaine, meth case. It's where legitimate drugs are being diverted illegally. And not many people had prosecuted those cases. And the agents stumbled into a brand new federal prosecutor who had no idea that there were some challenges to these cases that you didn't typically encounter.
And that brand new federal prosecutor was you?
Was me. One of the interesting things was the doctor went to trial and testified, and we had hired an internal specialist to come in and go through all of the medical files. And the cross-examination of the doctor was that basically Dilaudid is such a powerful painkiller. It typically shows up in cancer cases where people are terminal. And it's when you give Dilaudid to someone who's dying, you don't care that they're going to become hopelessly addicted because they're going to die soon. So you just keep them going. And that's what she was doing, except some of these people were getting hundreds of pills, prescriptions, month after month after month, and went dying. Or a lot of them had contradictions for difficulty breathing, and this is a morphine-based substance. You do not give that to somebody who has difficulty. So the doctor was kind of impeached by her own files as well as the testimony of flippers.
Of the 45 that you put away with that first prosecution, do you know if any or how many are still in jail?
So I think this goes back a long way. So I think all of the 4 who went to life, the 4 who went to prison for life, I suspect are all deceased now. Most of the other people that we convicted, and we gave them, my recollection is we gave them very good deals, were the homeless people. And we really had no interest in prosecuting them. So we asked them all to testify for us, which we did. I don't remember the exact deals they got, whether we simply said, go forth and sin no more, or whether they were put on some type of probation. But our main interest was getting this nucleus of 4 people who were working together that formed the head of the conspiracy.
Got it. So you were a federal prosecutor since roughly 1988. And how many years has your career spanned?
So I remain a federal prosecutor today, which is 2026. But what I did was I worked my way through the office, and I ended up going from the baby prosecutor unit to organized crime unit, where I worked on Italian and Russian organized crime cases. And I did that for about 10 years. While I was working Russian organized crime cases, I stumbled into a Russian human trafficking case. And at the time, trafficking cases were really not well known in the United States. Now there's been so much press, people know what they are. But at the time, when the FBI agents came in to say, we have this case, it involves these beautiful young women from Riga, Latvia, who were brought over here to work in restaurants by the Russian mafia, and they end up being forced to work as strippers or given the choice to work as prostitutes. When the agents came to me and told me that, I told them it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And in fact, the agents and the prosecutors had games that we would play on each other. When there was a new prosecutor, the FBI agents would make up a case to see how far they could deceive the prosecutor. The famous deceit was someone had stolen a Chinese national had stolen nuclear secrets from the Fermi lab, and they were about to climb on an airplane, which was not an American-based carrier, and if that door closed on that person, we would never get those secrets back. And the FBI said they had snipers and they wanted permission to shoot. And, and the thing was to get the brand new federal prosecutor all fired up. I mean, most people saw through it and not, but it was, so when these agents came in and told me about these beautiful young women who were forced to work as strippers and were locked up and controlled by the Russian mafia, it sounded like something out of a bad novel.
Right, and before you mentioned that one of your first boss, if I remember right, said the value of being a federal prosecutor and working for the government is you can do some good, and even if you make a mistake, you have the ability and the resources to correct it.
That's right.
So you've had the opportunity throughout your career to do a lot of good.
Yeah.
And is that what kept you in government service?
Yeah, I think so. So I would get antsy and think, a lot of my colleagues in the office would leave and double the salary. But every single time I thought about leaving, some brand new case would come in. That was absolutely fascinating. Typically, I got lots of international travel. I had great agents I was working with, and I was well paid, very well paid for a government servant. So I just kept going. I hadn't planned to spend my career in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but that's just the way it worked out. Ironically, while I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, after I'd successfully prosecuted the Russian trafficking case, that's when the State Department called. And the embassy in Moscow was looking for a federal prosecutor who worked Russian mafia cases, organized crime cases, and human trafficking.
Right.
And I fit that perfectly.